All right. So we're just going to go over how to install a Unifi Access Point on a ceiling tile and make sure it looks good when you're done. The very first part, make sure you have a real ladder. Do not use a chair, a bucket. Don't go on your friend's back. Safety is important. Stay alive. Stay safe. If you don't have a ladder and you need one, get one. First part is to take the ceiling tile down. So carefully climb up your ladder. And if you're not familiar, the ceiling tiles should generally go up. Give them a little wiggle. And then you kind of take them down at an angle. So on this side, on my left hand, it's lower, it's on an angle, and it should slide right out. So once you have your ceiling tile, we can do the measurements, the rough measurements on the back. So lay it somewhere flat. These do break really easily, so just be very gentle. And then we'll unbox the access point and look for the mounting bracket. It's normally a piece of metal. I'm not going to open this one. We can still do what we need to. You'll want to find your center, left to right, up and down. You can generally eyeball it. If you really want to be exact, you can use a tape measure and measure top to bottom. That's pretty good. Now the important part here with this bracket, we'll notice there's a notch here on the back. That is to line up with the actual access point itself. The mounting bracket has the same notch in the same position, and that matches with where the cables go. It would go like that, for example. So this is an important part we need to keep note as we pick our spot. So if this is where I want to install it, and I look at the access point where the main port is, what you can do is figure out when this gets put on, it locks clockwise. So we want the hole to be here. On the access point, there is a bit of an overlap that will cover a little bit wider around here. So you have all this space here to make your hole. So we'll make a hole like this. While you're here, you can mark your spots where we're going to put the screws afterwards. But finding that hole location is the most important. With a screwdriver, you can then make a hole. So on these ceiling tiles, again, they are very bendy and they will snap. What I like to do is from the back, I put my hand in front to support the tile as I push the screwdriver right through the front, right in the hole we marked. There's various tools you can use. If you have an actual drill, you can make the hole the right size for a network cable, but you can kind of just mar it up a little bit and just, as long as the network cable can pass through. It does make a bit of a mess, so hopefully you have a vacuum as something to use after. Generally, if your fingertip can fit through, so should a network cable. Just like that. So in this case, you probably would have a network cable that's already running through the ceiling, and hopefully whoever ran the network cable gave you enough slack to kind of work at this height. I don't have a network cable up there ready, so we'll just pretend with this one. This ceiling tile is not the one that actually goes there, but for the sake of the example, it would look something like that above you. Okay? Now to mount the bracket, I guess I will have to open this. Get your screws. So in the package, there comes 2 different sets of screws depending what surface you're mounting it on. What we're going to be using today is these long screws and these little nuts. These plugs and wood screws are for if you're mounting it either into drywall or directly onto a wooden platform. So we won't be using these today. Keep these aside. Okay, so with your ceiling tile and your the exposed side bracket, you want to make sure you don't have it backwards because that won't help you. This is the nicer face that goes out. So we want to line up the hole where we measured on the flip side. And then with these, you can literally just push the screw right through to the other side. I'll just use 2 for this example. So they go right through. On the back side, I'm going to lay it flat here. The back side, you line up the screws and holes and put the wing nuts on, or the, not wing nuts, sorry, put the little nuts on. They are really, really long screws, so this sometimes is a bit tedious, but make it nice and snug. And of course, on a real install, you would have 2 more over here as well. Now on this side, we have the mounting bracket for the access point. And you put the tile back up top. Once the tile is up top, you plug your access point into the main port. There's a main over here. And secondary is just a pass-through on these models. This will not power on the access point, only the main side will. And leave this little tab on. This is when it's installed against a wall where the wire has to come from below it. In this case, we're going to do a hidden wire setup. So I just wanted to add one little bit about the rubber grommet here. This is technically part of the weatherproofing that makes this access point outdoor rated. Just before you mount it and before you connect the network cable into it, you actually want to pass the head of the network cable through the little hole here. And it is pretty stretchy. If you're careful enough, you can kind of wiggle your way through. Like that. And then the rubber will seat pretty close to the network cable to just try to keep some of the moisture out. So put your rubber grommet on first, then plug into the main port. And you can slide your grommet over. It'll sit like this. And then you can go ahead and slide it onto the bracket. So plug in your network cable into main. And then as the ceiling tile is mounted up above, you just push the cable through, line up your access point, give it a twist, locked. Absolutely no wires all around, nice and solid. Professional.